Before we get started, hit the comments and tell me where you're watching from and what time it is over there. Whether you're catching sunrise in Nairobi, burning midnight in New York, afternoon in Canada, or evening in France, I want to hear from you. Don't just watch silently, let me know where in the world you are. Now let's dive into the story. Rain pelted the cracked asphalt of the abandoned military training facility, turning it into a slick, reflective nightmare. Kilira Voss pressed her back against the rusted metal wall, breathing hard, heart hammering like a war drum in her chest. 3 men, soldiers from her own unit, were closing in, boots thudding against the wet concrete, eyes gleaming with contempt. "Thought you could outrun us, rookie?" one sneered. The sound of their mocking voices sent a cold, sharp twist through her stomach. They didn't know. They had no idea who they were dealing with. Her hands tightened around the edges of her soaked jacket, feeling the familiar weight of the combat knife strapped to her thigh. Every instinct screamed fight or flight, yet a calm, terrifying focus settled over her mind. They thought she was just another green recruit, fragile, inexperienced, someone to humiliate and push around. But Kilira had trained longer, harder, and under far harsher conditions than any of them could imagine. She had been forged in the crucible of desert missions, night raids, and deep-sea combat training. They didn't see the SEAL combat master beneath the drenched exterior. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the alley for a brief heartbeat, and Kilira seized the moment. A well-placed kick sent one soldier stumbling into a puddle, his laughter replaced by a sharp gasp as icy water soaked through his uniform. Another lunged at her from the side, but Kilira twisted, her movements fluid, almost hypnotic, and his momentum carried him crashing against the wall. Pain flared along her shoulder from an earlier scrape, but she ignored it. Survival wasn't about comfort. It was about dominance, control, and the element of surprise. The third man's eyes widened as he finally realized the mistake he had made in underestimating her. "Wait. Kilira, what?" he began, but the words died in his throat as she dropped low, spinning with a blur of precision strikes that left him on the ground, gasping for air. She stood over them, rain washing streaks of mud and blood from her face, eyes blazing with righteous fury. "Remember," she hissed, voice cutting through the storm, "I'm a SEAL combat master." The men scrambled to retreat, shame and fear gnawing at their pride, but Kilira didn't chase. She didn't need to. Her dominance was proven, the lesson carved into their memories. And yet, beneath the storm of adrenaline and power, a gnawing unease tugged at her. This wasn't over. The humiliation, the jealousy, the hidden agendas of those around her, it was all just beginning. Kilira's gaze drifted to the distant, flickering lights of the city beyond the training facility. Somewhere out there, people believed in her, counted on her. Somewhere, her past and future collided, waiting for her to step fully into the truth she had long hidden. And as the rain poured, soaking her to the bone, Kilira made a silent promise to herself. No one would ever underestimate her again. Not her peers, not her enemies, and certainly not herself. The storm raged on, masking the distant echo of sirens and footsteps that weren't hers alone. Kilira squared her shoulders, breathing deep, preparing for what she knew was coming. The real battle wasn't just outside in the rain, it was within, in every decision, every memory, every secret that had made her the warrior she was today. And when the next challenge came, Kilira Voss would not just survive, she would dominate. The storm outside faded into a distant echo as Kilira Voss closed her eyes, letting the rain pour over her. But the footsteps approaching through the darkness triggered something deeper, an old wound, a memory she wished she could forget. The thunder rolled, and suddenly she was no longer standing in a ruined training facility. She was 17 again, standing barefoot on the splintered deck of a derelict fishing boat drifting off the Alaskan coast. The air smelled of salt, rust, and fear. Back then Kilira was quiet, almost invisible. People overlooked her easily, a thin girl with tired eyes and a voice that never rose above a whisper. She lived with her uncle, a man who carried the ocean in his bones and anger in his fists. He told her she was weak, too soft for the brutal world. "A girl like you," he would growl, "breaks before she bends." She never argued. She just listened, storing every bruising word deep inside like stones sinking in cold water. One morning changed everything. A violent storm struck while her uncle's boat was still miles from shore. Waves hammered the hull, tossing equipment like leaves. Her uncle slipped, crashing hard against the railing, his leg pinned beneath a metal crate. Water surged in. Panic swallowed him whole. "K. Help. I can't move," he screamed. And something inside her snapped awake. Kilira moved with a calm she didn't know she possessed. She dragged the crate off his leg, tied him to a mast with a rope knot she had practiced in silence for months, and climbed the mast to fix the torn sail while lightning carved the sky. She fought the storm like a creature born from it, gritty, unbreakable, focused. When rescuers found them hours later, they said only one thing. "Kid, you saved his life." Her uncle never admitted it. He just looked at her differently, not with respect but with fear. For Kilira that day lit a fire. A hunger to prove herself. To become someone no one could underestimate again. She enlisted at 18. The Navy SEAL program was not designed with people like her in mind. Small, quiet, female, unassuming. During selection, the instructors barely looked at her at first. The other candidates did worse, they laughed. Whispered. Bet on how long she would last. But the sea remembers who it has shaped. Kilira outlasted them all. She swam further. Held her breath longer. Endured pain with a silent endurance that unnerved her instructors. Her body broke and rebuilt. Her spirit hardened. Every insult became fuel. Every doubt became a weapon. And every night, when exhaustion threatened to pull her under, she whispered to herself. Bend. Don't break. By the time she reached advanced combat mastery training, something had shifted. People started watching her. Whispering not with mockery but discomfort. Jealousy. Fear. She was outperforming men larger, louder, and more politically protected. She didn't brag. She didn't boast. But her silence made others resent her even more. Especially Lieutenant Raskin and his two closest friends, the same three who cornered her in the rain earlier. During hand-to-hand evaluations, Kilira disarmed Raskin in under 4 seconds. It embarrassed him deeply. Too deeply. She saw it in his eyes, a hatred born not from what she did, but from what she represented. Proof that he wasn't as good as he believed. He never forgave her. And now, back in the present, as thunder rumbled and the footsteps approached, Kilira realized something chilling. These men didn't corner her out of anger or childish hazing. Their jealousy had evolved into something far more dangerous. A shadow shifted through the storm. A silhouette. Someone watching her. Someone who wasn't Raskin. Someone higher ranked. Kilira's pulse tightened. Whatever was coming next wasn't an accident. It was planned. The figure approaching through the storm moved with deliberate slowness, each step echoing through the hollow training compound like a warning. Kilira instinctively lowered her stance, muscles coiling with tension, rain dripping from her eyelashes. Lightning flashed, brief, violent, and for a split second she recognized the tall silhouette. Commander Aldrich Thorne. A man whose reputation alone could silence an entire room. Cold. Calculating. Known for breaking soldiers harder than steel. He wasn't supposed to be here, not during after-hours training, not in the middle of a storm, and definitely not approaching the aftermath of a fight Kilira wasn't even supposed to be involved in. Her pulse slammed against her ribs. Why him? Why now? Raskin and his two friends scrambled to their feet, pale and breathless. Fear flickered in their eyes, not of Kilira anymore but of the commander suddenly towering over them. Thorne's voice was quiet, too quiet. Care to explain why 3 trained soldiers are lying in the mud? He asked, while one woman stands tall? The men froze. Raskin tried to speak but his words tangled in panic. Sir, she attacked first. Kilira straightened, rain dripping down her back like cold fingers. She refused to shrink. A lie, she said softly, but the steel in her tone sliced through the storm. They cornered me, sir. Intentionally. Thorne's eyes, sharp, wolf-like, flicked to her. Not with concern. Not with anger. But with calculation as if measuring something inside her. Leave, he ordered Raskin. All of you. The 3 men fled, disappearing into the darkness. Kilira stood alone with him, tension thick as the storm clouds overhead. Thorne stepped closer. Too close. Close enough for her to smell the metallic tang of the rain on his uniform, close enough to see the faint scar slicing through his eyebrow. You fight with precision, he murmured. Too much precision for a recruit. Kilira didn't blink. I trained hard. He tilted his head. No. You trained differently. Silence pulsed between them, heavy and dangerous. Then he added quietly, you forget I review all personnel files. Yours is incomplete. Her stomach twisted. Incomplete. Meaning he knew. Meaning he suspected. Meaning her carefully hidden SEAL combat credentials, the ones she had buried to start fresh in this assignment, weren't hidden enough. Thorne's gaze sharpened. Tell me, Kilira Voss, what exactly are you running from? She felt the ground shift beneath her. Memories she had buried crept like ghosts, faces, orders, missions that still haunted her nights. things she had sworn not to speak of again. But Thorn didn't wait for an answer. He leaned in slightly, voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. Your secret isn't safe here. Raskin and his friends didn't target you by chance. Someone tipped them off. Kilira felt the world tilt. Tipped them off, about what? Thorn's jaw tightened. About who you really are. The storm seemed to pause. Kilira's heart pounded so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. You mean? Thorn cut in, that someone inside this base wants you exposed, or eliminated. A chill far colder than the rain coursed down her spine. She whispered, why? His answer came like a blade. Because you're not just a threat to them, you're a threat to the entire chain of command. Lightning cracked overhead, illuminating Thorn's face, not angry, not accusatory, almost intrigued. Report to my office at 0600, he said finally. We need to discuss your future here. Then, without another word, he stepped back into the darkness, vanishing as quickly as he had appeared. Kilira stood frozen in the storm, breath shallow, chest tight. The conspiracy was bigger than bruised egos or jealousy. Someone in power knew her past. Someone wanted her exposed. Someone wanted her gone. The rain softened, but inside her chest the storm only grew stronger. Sleep never came. Kilira lay in her narrow barracks bunk, staring at the ceiling as shadows flickered in the dim glow of the corridor lights. Every creak of the building made her flinch. Every footstep outside her door sent her pulse racing. Thorn's words replayed like a broken alarm bell in her mind. Someone wants you exposed, or eliminated. By 0530 she was showered, uniform crisp, hair tied back so tightly it felt like armor. She slipped through the early morning fog drifting across the base. The world was quiet, too quiet. Even the gulls circling above seemed muted, as if the entire base was holding its breath. Thorn's office sat at the far end of the administrative wing, behind 2 layers of reinforced steel doors and a biometric scanner. He wasn't the kind of officer you could simply walk in on. You entered only when called, and only at your own risk. The door hissed open. Thorn didn't look up from the stack of files spread across his desk. Close the door, Voss. She obeyed, standing at attention. The office smelled of old paper, cold coffee, and rain-soaked leather. A single lamp cast sharp shadows across Thorn's face, making him look carved from stone. Without speaking, he slid a red-stamped folder across the desk. Her blood went cold. The cover read, Classified, Voss Kilira, SEAL Combat Master Certification. Her past. Her real past. Kilira swallowed hard. Sir, where did you get this? Thorn finally met her eyes, and the look in them was not anger, it was something far more dangerous. Someone placed this on my desk before dawn. No note. No explanation. Just this. He tapped the folder. What? Twice. Each thump tightened the knot in her stomach. You hid your SEAL background when you transferred here, he said quietly. Why? She forced her voice steady. Because I wanted a clean start. No rank favoritism. No expectations. I wanted to prove myself all over again. Thorn studied her with unsettling intensity. Or you were hiding from something. A flicker of pain crossed her face, quick but visible. He caught it immediately. Who? He pressed. What happened? Kilira hesitated. The room felt smaller with every breath. There was a mission, she said finally. Classified Black Ops operation near Isthmus Ridge. A team extraction gone wrong. I warned the commanding officer not to proceed, bad intel, faulty terrain readings, but he ignored me. Her hands clenched at her sides. 3 SEALs died. I was blamed. Thorn's expression didn't change, but she saw a faint tension in his jaw. You were scapegoated. I was erased, she corrected. Stripped of my role. Told to disappear quietly. So I did. Silence filled the room. Thorn leaned back in his chair. And now someone here knows the truth. Someone who had accessed classified archives. Someone with power. Someone who wanted her cornered in the rain last night, not by accident, not out of petty jealousy, but to provoke her. To expose her combat skills. To confirm the rumors. Thorn slid another document toward her, a printed email and signed. 4 words. She doesn't belong here. Kilira felt her throat tighten. Who sent this? Anonymous, Thorn said. Sophisticated encryption. But whoever it is, they have access to things they shouldn't. She inhaled sharply. You think they'll try again? I know they will. Thorn stood, crossing the room with deliberate calm. You have 2 choices, Voss. Her heart hammered. Option 1, transfer out quietly before this becomes something bigger. She stiffened. Or, option 2, stay, fight the storm head-on and find out who wants you destroyed. Kilira lifted her chin. Slow. Controlled. Determined. Sir, with respect. I don't run anymore. Thorn's eyes narrowed in approval. Then prepare yourself. Whoever's behind this won't stop. Not until you're gone. He opened the door, signaling the end of the meeting. Report for duty. And stay alert, Voss. As she stepped into the hallway, Kilira felt the shift. The base wasn't just a workplace anymore. It was a battlefield. And somewhere inside it, an enemy was watching, waiting, planning the next strike. Morning drills began with the shrill blast of a whistle, slicing through the cold coastal air. Soldiers gathered on the field, breath fogging in the dawn light. Kilira moved among them, expression controlled, steps measured, body steady. But inside, her nerves were a tangle of warning signals. Someone on this base wanted her gone, and someone had access to classified archives sealed behind digital walls she once thought impenetrable. She kept her head down, blending into formation. But eyes followed her. Whispered conversations died whenever she walked past. Raskin and his friends glared like cornered wolves, nursing bruised egos and darker intentions. And above them all, she felt a presence, unseen but unmistakable. A watcher. Voss. Sergeant Hellman barked. Front line. Now. She stepped forward without hesitation. Hellman was a brick of a man with a voice that could crack concrete. He was known for being fair, but today his eyes held something sharper, colder. Combat trial, he announced. Pairings assigned. Voss, you're with... He paused. His jaw twitched. Raskin. The crowd shifted, tension pulsing like electricity. Kilira's spine stiffened. This wasn't random. Someone had orchestrated this pairing. Someone wanted a show. Raskin stepped forward with a smirk that didn't reach his eyes. He'd wrapped his wrists too tightly, preparing not for practice but for damage. Don't worry, little seal, he whispered. I'll go easy. Kilira didn't respond. She centered her breathing. In through the nose. Out through the diaphragm. Her senses sharpened, picking up every movement, every change in the gravel under her boots. Hellman's whistle cut through the air. Raskin lunged immediately, not with training technique, but with blind aggression. His fist swung wide, fueled by ego and rage. Kilira ducked, pivoted, let the momentum carry him past her. Gasps rippled across the watching formation. Raskin stumbled but regained footing, breath hissing like a feral animal. He charged again. This time Kilira met him head-on, but with precision. A shift of weight. A deflection. A palm strike to the chest that sent him staggering, coughing for breath. Hellman frowned. Something flickered in his eyes, not admiration, confusion. Almost guilt. Because he knew. Someone had pressured him into arranging this fight. Raskin rose again, wild and desperate. He threw a punch aimed at Kilira's temple. Sloppy, reckless, the kind that could kill if it connected. A murmur spread through the soldiers. This wasn't a drill. This was an assault. Kilira blocked, twisted his arm, and brought him down in a controlled takedown, not hurting him, just stopping the attack. Enough, she said, voice low. But Raskin wasn't done. He grabbed a handful of gravel and hurled it at her eyes. The crowd shouted. Kilira flinched but didn't hesitate. She rolled instinctively, avoiding his final charge. Raskin stumbled forward, lost balance, and slammed into the ground hard, shoulder dislocating with a sickening crack. Silence. Then, Voss, a voice roared from the edge of the field. Commander Thorn. He stormed across the formation, boots pounding. My office. Now. But not at her. At Hellman. Kilira stood frozen as Thorn confronted the sergeant inches from the watching soldiers. You assigned this pairing. Hellman swallowed. Sweat rolled down his temples. Sir. I followed instructions. Whose instructions? Hellman's voice broke. I can't say. Thorn's expression darkened like a brewing storm. You will. Hellman's eyes darted to the barracks. Fear. Real fear. Kilira's heart sank. Someone higher than Thorn. Someone untouchable. As Thorn marched Hellman away, the crowd parted. Soldiers whispered Kilira's name, not mockingly now but with a new mixture of fear and awe. But beneath their murmurs she felt it again. The Watcher. Eyes drilling into her back from somewhere unseen. She turned slowly. And saw him. A man standing near the comms building. A major she had never met. Expression flat. Unmoving. Watching her too intently. The moment their eyes met, he stepped back into the shadows, and vanished. Kilira's stomach dropped. This wasn't jealousy. This wasn't hazing. This was a hunt. Kilira walked off the field with her pulse pounding in her ears, gravel crunching beneath her boots. The morning fog had thickened, swallowing the base in a ghostly haze. Soldiers moved around her in muted blurs, giving her space, not out of respect but fear. She had known isolation before, but this was different. This felt orchestrated, designed, constructed with precision by someone who understood psychological warfare. Her hands trembled, not from the fight, from the realization that she was being cornered again, just like before, just like the mission that ruined her life. She ducked into the weapons cleaning bay, slamming the door behind her. The metallic scent of oil and gunpowder clung to the air. Rows of rifles lined the walls like silent witnesses. Kilira sat on the cold bench and exhaled shakily, her composure finally cracking. "Breathe," she whispered, but the word felt foreign. She had held herself together through storms, betrayal, and death. But the idea that someone with rank, someone watching her from the shadows, was manipulating everyone around her, was too familiar, too much like the past. Her mind flashed back to Isthmus Ridge, the cliffside, the 3 SEALs she couldn't save, the commanding officer who ignored her warnings, then blamed her for the disaster he caused. She remembered the quiet tribunal room, the dim light flickering as they erased her from her own record. She remembered the helpless rage of being silenced. Now it was happening again. She pressed her palms against her eyes, fighting tears she refused to shed. "Not again," she whispered. "I won't let them break me again." The bay door creaked open. Kilira shot to her feet, body snapping back into defensive posture, but relaxed when she saw him. Corporal Lyrian Holt. The one soldier who had ever shown her something close to kindness. A quiet, sharp-eyed technician who kept to himself and treated everyone with equal neutrality. His sandy hair was damp from mist, and worry tightened the corners of his mouth. "I heard about the fight," he said softly. "You okay?" Kilira steadied her breath. "I'm fine." "You don't look fine." She didn't respond. Holt scanned the room, ensuring they were alone. "Listen. Something strange is happening in the comms building." Her heart jumped. What kind of strange? He hesitated. Encrypted messages. Coming from an internal source. High-tier clearance. I tried tracing them. Whoever's doing it knows how to scrub footprints clean. Kilira felt a chill crawl up her spine. "They're sending messages about me?" Holt's silence answered the question. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Voss, someone wants you set up. I don't know why, but they're not done." Kilira's throat tightened. "Do you know who?" "No. But," he swallowed. "The major who was watching you on the field this morning, Major Soren Krail, he entered the comms room the same time the encrypted relay spiked." Her pulse froze. "The Watcher." "So it's him," she whispered. "Maybe," Holt said. "Or maybe he's connected to whoever is actually pulling the strings." Kilira sank onto the bench again, the weight of the truth pressing against her ribs. Holt crouched beside her. "Look, I don't know what's on your record or what you're running from. But I know you. You work harder than anyone, you never complain, and you never pick fights. What happened out there wasn't your fault." She stared at her trembling hands. "They're trying to corner me. Again. They want me unstable so they can justify removing me." Holt hesitated before gently placing a hand on her shoulder. "Then don't give them what they want." She breathed out shakily. "That's exactly what I'm afraid of. That this time, I might break." The words slipped out before she could stop them. And it terrified her. Holt's voice softened. "Then don't face this alone." Kilira looked up sharply. "You're putting yourself in danger." "I know," he said simply. "But some fights aren't meant to be fought alone." A sudden alarm blared overhead, echoing through the walls. Both of them stiffened. Holt's eyes widened. "That's the emergency summons." Kilira stood slowly, dread pooling in her stomach. The loudspeaker crackled. "All personnel report to the Central Command Yard immediately. Mandatory assembly." Another attack. Another move. Another strike from the enemy in the shadows. Kilira exchanged a tense glance with Holt. The hunt was escalating. The Central Command Yard was a chaos of movement and tension. Soldiers crowded into formation, their uniforms slick with early morning mist, eyes darting nervously. Kilira Voss's boots struck the wet concrete with a sharp rhythm, echoing her racing heartbeat. Every instinct screamed that this wasn't a routine assembly. The whispers that had followed her all morning had coalesced into something heavier, something dangerous. Major Soren Krail stood at the far end, expression unreadable, hands clasped behind his back. His presence was like cold iron pressing against her chest. Every soldier in the yard gave him space, but Kilira could feel the invisible tether tightening around her. This wasn't intimidation, this was orchestration. Every drill, every fight, every staged humiliation had been a thread in a web designed to corner her. Voss, Krail's voice rang out, cutting through the murmurs. It wasn't harsh, but every word carried the weight of authority and threat. Step forward. Her boots sank slightly into the puddles on the concrete, but she advanced without hesitation. Rain ran down her face, blurring her vision, but her focus was absolute. She could sense every eye on her, not with curiosity but calculation. You've caused disruptions, Krail continued, scanning the soldiers behind him, then locking eyes with her. People are talking. Questions are being asked. And someone wants answers. Kilira's jaw tightened. Sir, if this is about last night, Don't speak out of turn, he interrupted. Your combat record is unusual, and it doesn't match the file submitted for this base. A flash of anger hit her, then steadied into calm. They wanted her cornered, yes, but they underestimated her focus. Sir, she said evenly, I know what I'm capable of. I don't need files to prove it. The yard went silent. Even the wind seemed to pause. Krail tilted his head slightly, intrigued. Capable, yes. But do you realize how exposed you are here? Kilira's mind raced. He wasn't bluffing. He knew she was dangerous, and now he was trying to trap her, psychologically, physically, socially. But she wasn't just anyone. She had trained to survive worse than this, worse than betrayal, worse than orchestrated attacks, worse than being underestimated. Before Krail could continue, Raskin stepped forward, his voice low, venomous. We can handle her, sir. She's just one girl. The words would have stung anyone else. To Kilira they were fuel. The same men who had cornered her yesterday thought the same thing, and it had cost them. One girl, she repeated, her voice cutting through the tension. One girl who just survived a storm, a trap, and your combined arrogance. In an instant she pivoted. Not a flinch. Not a wasted motion. A precise, fluid strike sent Raskin stumbling back, clutching his arm as the yard gasped. She didn't follow. She didn't need to. Her presence alone had shifted the balance. Major Krail's eyes narrowed, the first flicker of respect, or fear, crossing his features. So, you are what they say you are. Kilira's wet hair clung to her face, her chest heaving, adrenaline sharp as a blade. I am. And I suggest you remember it. Silence hung over the yard. Soldiers who had been eager to witness her humiliation now looked away, uncertainty and awe replacing their arrogance. Krail stepped closer, voice low, deliberate. This isn't over, Voss. The more powerful you are, the more enemies you make. You should tread carefully. Kilira's eyes burned. I don't tread. I survive. And I win. The first raindrops of a new storm began to fall, splattering on the concrete around them. Soldiers scattered for cover, but Kilira didn't move. She stood tall, soaked, defiant. The lesson was clear. Underestimate her and you'll pay. Somewhere in the shadows, unseen eyes watched. Major Krail's warning only the beginning. But Kilira didn't flinch. She never did. Not before. Not now. Her fight was just beginning. The base had gone quiet after the storm, but the tension lingered like a low hum. Kilira Voss moved through the corridors with practiced stealth, each step measured, boots barely whispering against the wet concrete. Her body was still charged from the confrontation in the command yard. Soldiers whispered behind her back, eyes wide with awe and fear. They had seen her power. But admiration didn't make enemies disappear. It only sharpened their teeth. Kilira had barely reached the armory when a sudden vibration ran through the floor beneath her boots. The lights flickered and she froze. The storm outside had ended, but something else had begun. A calculated move by someone inside the base, someone who had studied her patterns, her habits, her weaknesses from the shadows. A voice hissed, low and mocking. Impressive display, Seal. But it won't save you when the walls close in. Kilira's body coiled like a spring. Every muscle tensed, eyes scanning. Nothing. But she knew the presence. A predator doesn't announce itself twice. She moved, silent, pivoting to flank the corridor, listening to the smallest echo of footsteps. She wasn't wrong. From behind a maintenance door, Raskin and another soldier, someone unfamiliar, emerged. Not in formation. Not in training stance. This was an ambush. You think last time was luck? The stranger sneered, stepping forward. His rifle aimed, fingers twitching over the trigger. Kilira's pulse didn't quicken. Her mind raced. In under a second, she assessed distance, trajectories, cover, and angles. Her SEAL training kicked in, every mission, every combat drill fused into instinct. She shifted to the side, dropping low behind a steel crate. A well-aimed kick sent gravel spraying into the attacker's boots, breaking his balance, but not giving him enough to recover. Raskin lunged, rage in his eyes, but Kilira caught his wrist, twisting in a fluid motion learned in countless hand-to-hand combats. He stumbled, crashing against the wall. Her other hand lashed out, disarming the rifle with a twist, throwing it across the floor. Time slowed. Every movement precise, every strike intentional. But the ambush wasn't just physical. It was psychological. The placement of the other soldier, the coordinated timing, it screamed orchestration. Someone in the base had tipped them off. Someone high up. Kilira's breathing remained controlled, even as her fists and feet moved with lethal elegance. She pinned Raskin against the wall, forcing him to his knees. "Remember who you're dealing with," she hissed. "I'm a SEAL combat master. Don't make me prove it again." The other soldier hesitated, seeing Raskin incapacitated. That brief pause was enough. Kilira moved with a blur, disarming him, twisting his arm behind his back, forcing him to the floor. The sound of heavy boots echoed down the corridor, Major Soren Krail. His eyes were hard, unreadable. He didn't move to help, didn't give instruction. He simply watched, calculating. Kilira rose slowly, rain and sweat mixing in her hair, chest heaving but controlled. "I suggest you reconsider your alliances," she said to the two subdued soldiers, voice cold. "Because underestimating me is a death sentence." Krail finally spoke, his voice a low rumble. "Good. You survived. But don't let this victory fool you. Someone bigger than Raskin is in play. They're not stopping. And they've already taken steps that even you can't predict." Kilira's eyes narrowed. "Then let them come. I've survived worse than cowardly attacks in the rain or foolish soldiers. They'll find out soon enough, the hard way." The two soldiers remained on the floor, breathing heavily, while Krail disappeared into the shadows, leaving Kilira standing alone, soaked, triumphant, yet more aware than ever that the real war hadn't started. Somewhere in the base, the true enemy waited, moving pieces on a board she couldn't yet see. But Kilira Voss knew one thing with absolute certainty: they had underestimated her. And that was their first, and possibly last, mistake. Night had fallen over the base, but Kilira Voss was wide awake. The rain had stopped hours ago, leaving a damp chill that crept through her uniform. Every shadow in the corridors felt alive, every flicker of light a potential threat. She moved silently, boots soft against the concrete, senses sharp as a predator. Last night's ambush wasn't random. The warning signs were clear. Someone inside the base, someone high-ranking, was orchestrating this hunt. Her mind raced as she reviewed every possibility. Major Krail had been watching her, but why? Was he part of it? Or simply another observer in the web of conspirators? Kilira's eyes narrowed as she approached the armory. Weapons, ammunition, and survival gear lined the walls. She touched each surface lightly, mentally preparing herself. If the final move came tonight, she would be ready. A sudden click echoed behind her. Kilira froze, spinning with reflexes honed from years of combat. A silenced pistol aimed at her chest. The shadow of a figure emerged, someone tall, cloaked in tactical gear. Her heartbeat didn't falter. Instead, her training took over. She lunged, twisting under the muzzle, kicking the attacker off balance. Gravel skittered across the floor as her fist met his jaw with pinpoint precision. He dropped instantly, unconscious before he hit the ground. Before she could catch her breath, another figure stepped forward from the shadows. Raskin, weapon raised. His eyes were wild, desperate. "You'll pay for humiliating me," he spat. Kilira ducked a low swing and slammed her shoulder into him, sending him sprawling across the floor. Her combat mastery wasn't just skill, it was instinct, honed over missions that had demanded life or death responses. A soft, almost metallic whisper caught her attention. Behind her, the reinforced security door clicked open. Major Krail emerged, arms raised in mock surrender, but his eyes betrayed a dangerous calculation. "Impressive," he said, voice low. "But even you, Voss, can't fight everyone at once." Kilira's gaze sharpened. "Then I won't," she replied. She didn't need to. Every punch, every kick, every move she executed had a purpose. She incapacitated Raskin, restrained the first attacker, and used the room's shadows and narrow angles to her advantage. Krail's lips tightened. He wasn't used to being impressed. Yet Kilira's presence commanded it. Suddenly the comm system crackled. A distorted voice cut through the room, masked and cold. "Voss, you were warned. Stop, or everyone you care about pays the price. The line went dead. Her chest tightened, adrenaline mixing with fury. This was bigger than petty rivalries. Someone with real power wanted her gone, and they had leverage. Her eyes scanned the armory, then settled on the security monitors. Every angle, every corridor, every potential entry point. Her mind calculated escape routes, counterattacks, and contingencies with brutal efficiency. Kilira wasn't afraid. Fear was a luxury she couldn't afford. Major Krail stepped closer. They want you gone. You can't fight them all. Kilira took a deep breath, letting the storm of adrenaline settle. I'm not here to fight everyone, she said quietly, voice icy and firm. I'm here to survive, and to make sure anyone who underestimates me regrets it. Lightning flashed outside, illuminating her soaked uniform, the steely glint in her eyes, and the tension that crackled like electricity in the room. Krail's expression flickered, admiration, fear, respect, all entwined. He knew he had underestimated her. So had everyone else. The monitors blinked, and a new figure appeared in the shadows on the screen. Someone Kilira had never seen before. Tall, methodical, and cold. The mastermind. Watching. Calculating. Waiting. Kilira's lips curved into a small, grim smile. Then let's finish this, she whispered. The storm outside mirrored the storm within her. And when the battle came, it would not be measured in seconds or strikes. It would be a storm of skill, courage, and sheer willpower. The base was silent, but the air crackled with anticipation. Kilira Voss moved through the shadows, boots light, every sense stretched taut. The monitors from the comms room glowed faintly behind her, displaying the masked figure, the mastermind who had orchestrated every ambush, every whispered threat, every cornering of her in the past days. Her pulse was steady, her breath measured. Every ounce of training, every mission, every moment of pain, humiliation, and survival had led to this. She wasn't just a soldier. She was a SEAL combat master, and tonight she would prove it once more. The figure appeared in person now, emerging from the shadows of the main hall. A tall, commanding presence, clad in tactical gear. Kilira could sense his confidence, too much confidence. He believed he had her trapped. He didn't know her. Impressive, he said, voice calm but cutting. You've handled everything I've thrown at you, but this is the end, Voss. Kilira didn't flinch. I don't end. You do, she replied, her voice low, steady, controlled. Every syllable carried weight. Every movement was deliberate. The first strike came fast, a swinging baton aimed at her head. Kilira ducked, rolled, and brought him off balance with a precise elbow strike. He recovered quickly, smirking, underestimating her once again. That mistake would cost him. She moved like water, flowing, uncatchable, lethal. Each movement was a calculated mix of offense and defense, honed over years of combat mastery. Every punch, every kick, every throw was executed with precision that left him struggling to keep pace. You've trained well, he sneered, swinging again. But Kilira anticipated it, redirecting his energy, using his own momentum against him. One swift leg sweep sent him sprawling to the floor. Kilira stood over him, rain and sweat streaking her face, uniform soaked and heavy, hair clinging to her temples. Remember this, she said, voice razor sharp. I'm a SEAL combat master. You thought you could corner me? You thought you could break me? He struggled to rise, but her gaze pinned him to the ground. No. You underestimated me. That was your first and last mistake. Suddenly the monitors behind her flickered. Thorne, Raskin, and the remaining soldiers watched from a safe distance, awestruck. Even Major Krail, who had orchestrated some of the obstacles, looked on with a mixture of fear and respect. Kilira's mastery had turned what was meant to be a trap into her victory. She stepped back, keeping her eyes locked on the mastermind. And now, she said, the game is over. The figure finally raised his hands in surrender. You're unstoppable. Kilira didn't respond. She simply signaled the nearby soldiers to secure him. Every member of the base, every doubter, every enemy, had witnessed her skill, her precision, her unyielding resolve. The message was clear. Underestimate Kilira Voss and you will pay the price. Later, in the debriefing room, Kilira finally allowed herself to exhale. Commander Thorne stepped forward, respect evident in his eyes for the first time. You handled yourself, and everyone else, perfectly. I underestimated you. But no more. Kilira's lips curved into a faint smile. Sir, I don't need approval. I just need to survive, and protect the people I serve with. Thorne nodded. Then consider today, mission accomplished. Outside the rain had stopped. The storm clouds parted, revealing a pale dawn. Light spilled over the base, washing away the fear and tension that had hung for days. Kilira stood tall on the ridge overlooking the facility, soaked but unbowed, a warrior who had faced not only her enemies but the shadows of her past, and emerged victorious. Her voice was quiet but unwavering. "Remember? I'm a SEAL combat master." And now everyone knew.